This is Ready Set Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force, from the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination, and on this Ready Set Reiki journey, we refer to ourselves as guides rather than hosts, as we too are traveling, supporting each other, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your first guide, Tracy Searight.
I am your co-guide, Kim Cardiel Early.
And today I'd like to introduce our guest, Mike Sentenia. Now, Mike is the founder and lead healer at the Healing Lab, specializing in chronic pain. He has been studying energy healing since 1991, and he also offers a money back guarantee. He's the author of Arthritis, Natural Health and Prevention, and the upcoming Transformative Pain, the Emergent Science of Energy Healing for Pain Management. His mission is to end chronic pain with a modern science of energy healing, integrated with mainstream medicine and covered by insurance. So welcome, Mike, to Ready Set Reiki.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So we're going to dive right in here. So I gave our listeners just a little bit about you. So tell us about yourself.
Well, I grew up outside New York City and got a master's in computer science and went into the tech world. But my passion has always been energy healing. I started it as a kid. I'll tell you all about that. And so these days, I live in the Bay Area where I run Healing Lab, and our tagline is holistic healing that works guaranteed.
Wonderful, wonderful. So when did energy work come into your life? Did it find you or did you find it?
A little bit of both. So when I was a kid, a friend who loved fantasy novels talked about feeling energy from trees. And I tried it and I felt some tingling. And I went to the ocean by my home and tuned into the energy and felt this whole body frisson, this like tingling all over the body. And I had a bunch of experiences like that. Now, how much of that was energy and how much of that was imagination? I have no idea. I was 12. But it got me started wanting to understand what this was and how it worked. And quality time with my dad was learning about math and chemistry and physics. And so I had this scientific orientation. And I developed techniques for like, how do I observe energy and how do I understand it? Then in my 20s, I was partnered with a woman who had chronic knee pain. She was a bit older than me. She had used to run and she had to give it up because her knees would ache too much. That was before we met, she'd given it up. And whenever we'd go dancing, because we did swing dancing, or she'd garden or whatever, her knees would ache. And I was like, I've been messing around with energy for a decade. Like I've always felt it, right? Let me see what I can do for you. And so I would read the energy of her knees, and I would read the energy of my healthy knees, and I'd adjust the energy of her knees to look like the energy of my knees, and her pain would come down. And then the next day, she'd have knee pain again, and I'd do it again, and her pain would come down. And I did this every day for 3 months, like 100 sessions. And after that, she wasn't having aching when we dance or when she'd garden, and she was able to start running again for the first time in years. And so that was kind of my first experience with energy healing. I got more into it, just doing it more for friends. I worked with her. She developed chronic hives at one point, and I was able to help her out. And then in 2014, I learned that she had cancer. We had broken up and lost touch, but I became one of the people who was helping take care of her and developed some healing techniques designed to help her with the pain from chemotherapy and the insomnia that she was having. And she started having less pain and she started sleeping better. And in 2015, after 2 rounds of chemo, she ultimately died of cancer. And I mourned, but reconnecting with her, she had always believed in what I did even more than I did, right? I was seeing the results, but she was feeling the results. And she had always wanted me to share this with people. And that inspired me to start Healing Lab. Initially, I thought I'd be doing the research. And then as I met some wonderful researchers, especially Melinda Connor, I learned, one, that they know more than I ever want to about the statistics for placebo-controlled trials. And two, what the world needs is not another researcher chasing a tiny, tiny pot of money. What the world needs is an industry partner to help fund and drive the research. And so that's what I've been building for the last 9 years.
Beautiful, beautiful. What a wonderful story. I love it. Wow. Amazing. That was so wonderful that that woman was able to connect with you and that you could help her. Wow. Wonderful. So, founder of the Healing Lab, author, as you are out and you are being of service to so many people, what is a common misperception about your work?
You know, people often think that energy healing is just totally woo, that there's no basis for believing in this. There's actually been about 50 years of scientific research on this. So when I was first starting Healing Lab, right, coming out of that experience with her name was Lisa, coming out of that experience with her, and like feeling this need to start it, but also feeling so much resistance. And I had to ask myself, how confident am I that all of those experiences with friends were the result of energy and not the result of placebo, right?
Mm,
Mainstream science says this stuff doesn't exist. There's no mechanism of action for it in today's chemistry or physics or biology. So it's a big leap, right? And I wasn't one that I was willing to take just on my personal experience. And so I started reading the research. And I was really only expecting some case studies that could just as easily be placebo, but I was blown away. There's research on water. You do energy healing to water, it changes the infrared reflectivity and the pH. That's William Tiller and Stephen Schwartz. There's research on cell cultures. You take E. coli, you heat it up to the point where it's almost dead. That's called heat shocking. And then you do energy healing on it. And the E. coli that gets the energy healing recovers, and the E. coli that doesn't dies. E. coli doesn't know what you're doing. There's no placebo there. And there's also that was Beverly Rubik. There's also research on animal and human cell cultures with tremendous results. There's plant and animal studies. Gloria Granowitz took mice with cancer. The mice that got energy healing, the cancer did not metastasize as much. Um, One of my favorite studies is from Melinda Connor. She took plant clippings, put them in water. The plant clippings that were just plants in water all died within the first month.
mm,
The other half got distance healing. The people weren't even in the same room. And you might think, okay, did it live 10% longer? Did some of the plants die quickly, but some of them lived a little longer? No. All of the plants that got the energy healing lived for the full 90 days of the study. So there's this complete separation. Everything died within 30 days. Everything that got energy healing lived 90 days. I love that result. The best research is
yeah,
where you don't even need statistics to know it worked.
right.
Um, and then there's a ton of research on humans also. Placebo-controlled trials have shown great results for pain, stress, and anxiety. And most recently, last year, William Bengston did the first double-blind placebo-controlled trial. They did energy healing on water, put the water into capsules, and then just followed a standard double-blind study. And what that found in that study, people with COVID-19 had a reduced intensity and duration of symptoms. So really exciting stuff. And it got me out of that resistance and out of that self-doubt and to say, wow, this stuff really, it works on inanimate matter and cells and plants and animals and humans in placebo-controlled trials. And then I wasn't saying I was doing this unique thing. I was saying, well, this thing exists. It's out there in the world, and I can do it too. And I'm just especially good at certain things. So it was a huge part of getting me going.
Beautiful. I love how you framed it in that way to kind of suit it for you, right? To move
Thank
forward.
you.
I love that. I love that. And there's some people that need that. That's how their brain works. They need to have the evidence. So to
Mhm.
have that, to back that up.
Yeah.
So again, when you made that comment about the misconception with woohoo, it kind of, okay, I'm going to give it a try. They need that little boost to take that first step. So thank you.
I think skepticism is the correct stance to take on energy healing, right? And more than half of my clients are skeptics. I routinely have people tell me, I don't believe in energy healing. The only reason I'm trying it is because of the money back guarantee. And then
Mm.
I routinely have those people, they come in, they do the session, and then a few days later they text me and they're like, oh my God, I feel so much better. I'm becoming a believer, right? And I love that. It's so
Right.
cool. And it's so great being able to help people who might not have otherwise gotten that help.
Right, right. And I like how you add in the money back guarantee. That's
Mhm.
really showing you, hey, let's give it a try. What's it going to hurt, right?
Exactly.
You won't have to pay for it, right? You'll get a nice relaxing session. So,
Yeah,
wonderful.
the way I do it, I've tried to figure out how do I make this as appealing as possible to skeptics, right? Because energy healing has about 1% market penetration. 99% of the population thinks it's kind of silly, and a lot of that 99% has some really severe pain, and I would love to help them. And
Right.
so the way we do it is super simple. There's no upfront payment. You come in for a session. We send you an invoice afterward. If you like the results, pay the invoice. If you don't like the results, don't pay the invoice. Even if you get a little better, but it's not as much as you expected, don't pay the invoice. No hard feelings. And that makes people feel so safe to give it a try.
Right.
They know there's no hoops to jump through or anything like that. And so they come in and discover they really like it. And it's great.
Great, wonderful. Thank you for offering that for your community. Wonderful. So, listeners, listen up. So, if you want to give it a try, money back guarantee. So, our next question is, and you may have answered it a little bit here, but what has the biggest challenge been in your profession?
I would say learning how to talk to skeptics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right? The summary of the research that I just gave you a few minutes ago, I couldn't do that 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right? It's learning how to talk to skeptics, welcome the skepticism, empathize with the skepticism, not be dismissive, and also not feel threatened myself. Having the self confidence and self knowledge that their skepticism has nothing to do with me. Um, and that's been a challenge, but it's been a wonderful source of growth also.
Wonderful, wonderful. And again, you're framing it so beautifully. Growth. I
Thank
love
you.
it. I love it. So, with that growth, what is something that you wish your younger self knew about your current profession?
I would say I wish my younger self knew to not be so hung up on short term growth, um, to focus on becoming the person who could create this healing practice rather than on any one session or one client or one sales opportunity, right? Work through that resistance and that I grew up with a lot of shame around energy healing. Right? I think we all did growing up in this culture of skepticism,
Hmm.
but my father was the kind of atheist who would make fun of psychics and religious people. So I grew up with even a little more of it than most people.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew to like take the time to just work through that and release that and become the person who could make this happen rather than like stressing out about revenue in the first year.
Very good. Yeah. So, our next question is when it's time for you to get your energetic tune up, what do you look for in an energy worker or an energy practitioner?
Well, typically I do it myself, but what I would recommend if you're looking for an energy healer is someone with a guarantee, right? Um, Certifications are great, but they just mean that that person learned studied the thing. It doesn't mean that that system is going to work for you, and it doesn't mean that that person is executing that system as well as their teacher. Um, Someone who has a money back guarantee, it shows that they stand behind their work, and also nothing works for everyone, right? What I do doesn't work for everyone. I routinely I routinely, it's not giving a refund because they don't pay in the first place, but I routinely say, hey, I'm real sorry this didn't work for you. Best wishes on the next thing. And the only honest approach is to say nothing works for everyone. And that's fine. So look for someone where you can try it for yourself, see if it works for you, and only pay after you've realized that it does work for you. That's what I would look for.
All right, beautiful, beautiful. I always tell people to find their Goldilocks. They're just right, right?
Mhm.
There'll be something out there that works for them. So, yeah, very good. So, what advice would you give someone who is just entering this profession?
Track your successes and your failures. Um, if somebody gets results, keep track of that. Because on the days when, like, I've been doing this for a long time, and still on days when someone doesn't get results, um, like, I take it personally, right? Like, not in a way that I want to put it on them, but just like I feel down, right? I mean, you know what they say: do something you love, and you'll work way too hard and take everything way too personally. So first, track your successes. And I have a mood tracker. And I kind of track how well did sessions go that day. And so then I can look back at my calendar and be like, wow, yeah, today was a lousy day, but you know what? The last 3 months were great.
Uh-huh.
Um, but the flip side of that is also track your failures. Don't dismiss them. Don't be like, well, that person didn't believe in energy healing. Hey, it should work even if they don't believe it. Don't be like, oh, energy works in mysterious ways. Hey, there's always a way that we could improve to become more reliable. So whenever something doesn't work, try to figure out what you can do better next time to make it more and more reliable. And that's how I got to the point where people only pay once they're satisfied. So yeah, track the successes, track the failures, improve.
Wonderful. Oh, good advice. That's great advice. I love it. So, what books do you recommend? I know you are an author, so you can include your books in this as well.
One of my favorite authors, and this is a business author, is Simon Sinek. He's you might know him from he has a TED talk that's popular
Mm,
on YouTube. Start with why. I
yes.
love that approach to talking about your values and what drives you to do your business. I like Seth Godin. He's another marketing writer. And then I just want to promote my book. It's Transforming Pain, the Emerging Science of Energy Healing for Pain Management. It comes out later this year, and it might already be out by the time this goes live. And it goes into the science of energy healing, why energy healing will drive the next scientific revolution, and what we can do to help make energy healing mainstream, widely accepted, widely used, and covered by insurance.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that with our listeners. So, this bookshelf of mine is just getting packed up with all these wonderful recommendations, and I'm certainly going to go out and get yours. So, very interesting. Thank you. So, what other modalities do you offer?
So, Healing Lab, in addition to energy healing, we do nutrition consultation. We
Okay.
have a wonderful, she's a registered dietitian, Alyssa Broadwater. She has an MS in being a dietitian. When I was bringing her in, I must have interviewed like 20 or 30 nutritionists.
Wow.
And what I was looking for was someone who could speak to the science of nutrition, just like I like being able to speak to the science of energy healing, right? And I wanted someone who could talk about supplements and dietary choices and the mechanism of action and the biochemistry and the research behind it. And she nailed it. And I was so impressed. So I love being able to help clients also get great nutrition advice. And if all you want is nutrition and you don't want energy healing, you can also just get her.
Oh, beautiful. Wonderful. So, where can our listeners find you? Or do you offer online, in person? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so go to healinglab.org to book your free consultation. I do in person sessions in Oakland, California, and I do online sessions everywhere. And I take kind of a unique approach to distance sessions. So, a lot of energy healers, they will like meditate on your picture. And I have done that and I have gotten results, but I always have like this, how confident am I in that working every single time? How can I make a stronger connection to get better, more reliable results? And so what I do is I make an energy connection to a business card. I have these metal cards printed up specifically for this, so they last forever. So I make an energy connection to it. I mail it to the person. It still has my energy in the card when it gets there. And I have them touch it to wherever I'm working with so that I can use my connection to the card to make a connection to their body, get the right spot, get a nice, strong connection. It's still sometimes strange to me that the laws of physics allow for this to work, and yet people's pain keeps coming down, so I keep believing in it. So, yeah, both in person and distance sessions, same results, same guarantee for both.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love the card. That's a new one
Thank
for
you.
me. So thank you. You just taught me something today. Wonderful. I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much. This ends our journey together with our questions. And I'm going to pass you over to my co-guy, Kim, who has 3 social media questions for you. So thank you so much, Mike.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tracy. Great being here.
Wow, Mike, I gotta tell you, I've been learning. I learned so much. So I have so much, but let me stick to the script here. So three of the
Okay.
questions. First question was, I saw you work with another system of energy. Can you tell me a little bit more about that system?
Yeah, so I've been trained in Reiki and in therapeutic touch. I've never been certified in Reiki, but I've taken training in it. But most of the techniques that I actually use with clients are ones that I've developed over the past 20 years. Initially, with Lisa, that partner with the knee pain and the cancer, she was a nurse. And so she was able to share a lot of insights about the physiology and root cause of conditions. And we would together figure out how to approach it energetically. And then more recently, just working with clients and testing out techniques. The main difference, so a lot of systems of energy healing will use one universal energy for everything. And that's great because it's relatively fast to teach, right? If you need to teach how to do one thing, you can get a lot of people with that skill very quickly. And it's great. I mean, there's wonderful research on Reiki. It helps people. We need more people who know this. Um, and I take a slightly different approach. I will dial in just the right energy for each tissue involved in a condition. So if I'm working with frozen shoulder, say, which I work with a lot of clients with frozen shoulder, what's going on is there is a sheath that wraps around the muscle fiber, and this sheath gets inflamed. Well, I have some energy designed specifically to work with inflammation, and I tune it to the energy of that muscle sheath. Um, and then separately, when nerves signal pain over and over, they learn to signal pain better and better. That's what chronic pain is. It has a unique physiology and a unique energy signature. And I will align to that energy signature really precisely and suppress it. And for so many of my clients, what keeps happening is their pain comes down in less than a minute. And so by focusing on individual tissues and tuning the energy to just exactly what's going on in that tissue and that condition, it lets me get stronger, more reliable, more guaranteeable results.
Yes, like when my mom has chronic back pain. So that's
Mhm.
what I tried to do is focus on the tissue that is
Yeah.
not there and focus on the tissue growing. So when you talked about your friend who had that itch,
Mhm.
and instead of like as a Reiki practitioner, I focus on, okay, let's see what's going on energetically. But when you were like talked about how you went to the root of it, and I was like, oh,
Mhm.
like that. I was like,
Yeah.
okay. Because that's kind of like the idea I had with my mom, but I never like did it or tried it. You know what I mean? Or really went. So
Yeah.
thank you for the
There's
inspiration.
a bunch of extra techniques involved in taking that intention and being able to turn it into something that you can reliably execute on it. And that's a lot of what I spend my time on is figuring out how to take that goal of focusing on a specific tissue and aligning the energy to what's going on with that tissue and turning it into something that reliably works over and over.
Yes, that is awesome. Okay, question number 2. Can you give me an example of how I can build my confidence through energy games?
Yeah, I love playing energy games with my students. So I started this back around when I started my professional practice. And the idea is, if you close your eyes and visualize, a light or whatever represents energy to you, and you expect to feel tingling, and you breathe deeply, which hyperventilates a little bit, which creates a tingling in the body, you will probably feel a tingling. And I always wondered, is that really energy or is that just tingling? And I knew my students were doing that also. And so what I started doing was playing blindfolded energy games. So here's the first one that I do in all my beginner classes. You partner up, one person sends, the other receives. The receiver closes their eyes or wears a blindfold, but holds out both their hands. The sender randomly picks a hand. We have them flip a coin, so it's truly random. So you're not trying to like guess and oh, he did the left hand twice, he must be doing the right hand. Just it's random. Uh, Send the energy. Don't tell them which one it is. Don't touch them. When you say I'm sending the energy, stand in the middle of their body, not like off to the side, and just get them to feel the energy. And this is understandably really difficult for people when they start. Uh, Even people who have experience with energy, usually they're really good at sending, but they struggle with receiving just like everyone else because nobody practices this way. But the great thing is that after about an hour of training, people are reliably detecting the energy And I noticed this change in folks after doing this exercise, right? Where they came in psyching themselves up to believe, right? We can say, I believe in energy in the way that I believe I'm going to do a good podcast, right? Like I'm telling myself that because I want to believe it, but
Yeah.
like, right. And then you
My
could
thoughts are
also believe in
powerful.
energy. Exactly. You could also believe in energy in the way you believe in gravity, where like, if I take my phone and I drop it, I believe it's going to fall. Not because I'm convincing myself it's going to fall, but because that's just how the world is. And the tremendous thing about doing these blindfolded energy games is it moves people from that first psyching yourself up kind of belief to that second, oh, this is just how the world is. This stuff really is real, and I can move it and I can feel it. And I love helping people get that confidence.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is awesome. Okay, so the third question is, what is a technique I can use to strengthen my distance healing?
So when COVID-19 hit and we all switched to distance sessions, I had previously been doing only in-person sessions, and I would sometimes do distance sessions for an existing client where I had, previously like touched the spot that we were working with and made the energy connection. I had the energy connection. I was like, man, how can I do that with someone I've never met? How can I make that strong kind of energy connection with someone I've never met? Um, right. I mean, I've done the version where you focus on their image and you intend to send the energy, but I wanted something more reliable. I wanted something where I knew I was getting the right spot in their body, right? Getting their shoulder, getting the correct shoulder, right? And so what I figured out was I'm instead of just focusing on their image, I made an energy connection to a business card. I eventually had these metal cards printed up specifically for this. So I make an energy connection and I mail it to the person. And then in session, they will hold that card to wherever I'm working with. And that lets me take my energy connection to the card and make a strong energy connection to the person. And one of the most common things that happens in distance sessions, because remember, I'm getting results so quickly that I do my energy and then I say, great, how do you feel? Do you feel the change? And clients will be like, oh yeah, my pain is down here, but I actually still have some pain here in my neck. I'm like, great, it's really common for me to miss a spot. Put the card where you have the pain. Let me make an energy connection to that exact spot, and let me take care of that, right? And so by having this card, it both makes a stronger energy connection, and it also lets me be more reliable in that a client can tell me, oh, there's this spot that's bothering me. Great, show me where that spot is, right? It lets me do that in a way that I couldn't if they were just telling me, oh, it's this joint, right? Great, how do I connect to that? This is how I connect to that.
That is so awesome. That like Tracy was saying, that's new. I've never seen that either.
Mhm,
So that's just fascinating. I just wanted to say too, like when I read up on you and I was reading about you, I love that you came from the science
mhm,
background because I came from a religious background. So when you
mm,
said your dad made fun of psychics and religious people, that made me chuckle because I think of us as separate. So he's like,
mhm.
no, 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 you're all the same. Do you know what I mean? You're all whatever. So I was cracking up about that. So I love that. And then just yeah, I just love that you even just when you first started talking, oh, I loved how you also talked about how we only know what we know, like how in the 17th century and see like I'm not good at the
Mhm.
fact, but I do remember what I read and it
Yeah.
was like something was introduced and then you talked about how the next century how oxygen, so it was like combustible stuff and now you were like this is it. This is the new this is what's gonna science is gonna bring it and it's gonna bring it together. And I love that just like religious people when when non-believers have doubts, they'll like do all these Bible quotes and all these things to
Mhm,
like convince them. And I just loved how you busted out all these like science experiments, like, this is what I do for them, like da da da, da, and you explain it with science and facts and actual experiments that have been done because you can't, for as the psychics and mediums and intuitives,
mhm,
you know, that's science, that's energy.
mhm.
It's when we try to explain energy, like, no, Reiki, they're like, whatever. They just think of us as like witches, right? But
Mhm.
you're coming from a science side of it. And it's like, no, and you're like naming names and I love that. So you've actually inspired me to go and research that and memorize these names. So the next time people say, I'll be like, oh yeah, well, did you know da 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 did this? Water. Did you know that? Because that's energy. Do you know what I mean? So this
I
way,
love
I actually
that.
found that I did some scientific research on this, people. You know what I mean? So thank you, because and I knew these experiments had been done, and just
Mhm.
listening to you though, when you explain it and talk about it in a scientific, perspective,
Yeah.
it just, I love it because I believe it. You know what I mean? And
Thank
it
you so
validates
much.
what I do more, So thank you, because I'm actually also as a teacher, I loved those energy games that you talked about.
Mhm.
And that's definitely something I'm going to incorporate, because I do like intuition exercises,
Yeah.
and I do with the candle. I have them play with the
Mhm.
candle, but with other people,
Yeah.
feeling the energy. I love it.
I
And one
agree.
last thing before I pass the mic, or if you have anything else to add, I'm gonna
Well,
add. But that 11-year-old friend, I'm very, because you said when he lost interest, I was cracking up. You're like, yeah, so he got me all into this and had me feel this tree, but then he lost interest. So I kind of like forgot about it. And then I met this
yeah.
woman in my 20s. So I was like, I wonder what happened to that little boy, where he's at now. But yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much. I learned so much. I just love it. I said I live like a 7-year-old. I'm like, wow, wow,
Mhm.
wow. Every day, like all this stuff just fascinates me.
I
So
love the beginner's mind attitude. And
yeah.
with the science, my take is energy healing is a natural phenomenon. The best tool we have for understanding natural phenomena is science. And when we understand it, it will let us harness energy healing better to help more people. And it'll also give us new insights into physics and chemistry and biology. Because right now, none of them can explain energy healing. Every few generations, we encounter a phenomenon that's missing from the sciences of the day. And when we do, it leads to breakthroughs in the physical sciences and the next century of technology. And that's why I do what I do.
Yes, that's what it was. You said it better than I did, I think.
I have a lot of practice.
Yes, yes. But is there anything else that you have to add? More little drops of wisdom you can give us before I pass it back to our other guide? What else do you have to
Um,
add?
yeah, let me go over the scientific revolutions. This might be fun for folks. So every few generations, humanity encounters a phenomenon that's missing from the science of the day. 100 years ago, that was quantum physics, and everybody knows about the bizarre behavior of photons. But what most people don't realize is quantum physics gave us transistors, which is the basis for computers and phones and the internet. And those are pretty good. 100 years before that, when alchemy was a science, the theory of combustion is that wood contained phlogiston, and that the flames were phlogiston leaving the wood. Now, you've probably never heard of phlogiston because it doesn't exist, but that was the alchemical theory at the time. And Anton Lavoisier, in the 1800s, he weighed different materials as they burned. Um, and he discovered phlogiston theory says everything weighs less, right? It lost the phlogiston, so it weighs less. He discovered that magnesium weighs more when it burns. Now, you and I know that's because magnesium oxide is a solid, and so the magnesium has picked up oxygen atoms and it weighs more.
I
But
didn't know
half,
that. Thank you.
well, I'll give you credit for it anyway. But half of those words didn't exist back then. In fact, coming out of this research, Lavoisier coined the word oxygen. And this is widely regarded as the dawn of chemistry. And chemistry is pretty good. And 100 years before that, when people thought that diseases were caused by bad air and demons, breakthroughs in glassmaking led to the first lenses. And Antony von Leeuwenhoek, he was a weaver and he bought some lenses to do quality control on his thread to make better cloth. And then he turned around and he looked at blood and saliva and swamp water, and he was the first human to see single cell organisms. He called them animalcules, like animal molecule. And
Mm,
it was a long path, but that ultimately led to the germ theory of disease and modern medicine and antibiotics, which are pretty good. Um, and so we encounter these anomalies, right? These microscopic organisms that nobody thought would exist, this magnesium weighing more, all this bizarre stuff with photons. We encounter these anomalies. And then 100 years later, we come to understand it. And it gives us the technology of the modern world. We are 50 years into researching energy healing. So we're halfway through that 100 years to understand it. And when we understand it, it'll lead to breakthroughs in physics and chemistry and biology in the next century of technology. And that's what I'm doing.
And I will no longer be called a witch. No, I'm just kidding.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you. And I have to say too, like I was not a good student. I've always been into the woo-woo, but you have really sparked an interest in me in getting to dip in more into like chemistry. And my kids are little, they're only in kindergarten and first grade. So I know as they're going through school and they're also like learning these things, I really feel like I'm going to have like a revolution in my education because I'm going to be a little bit more focused and interested, and now because you're applying it to something that I understand and that I like. Oh, okay. Let me go back to the chemistry stuff. So thank you.
I love that.
Yeah, I'm going to tap into that. So, because I wouldn't have before, but because you applied it to energy, I'm like, there's something there. I'm going to go educate myself. So thank
I
you.
love that. Thank you so much.
I'm going to pass it back to my co-guide, Tracy. Thank you so much. It was awesome talking with you.
Great talking to you, Kim. Hey, Tracy.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Mike, so much. This has been truly educational, and it's going to be really wonderful for our listeners to hear about this, and especially for our curious beginners. We want them to know this so they don't have that misperception about what this is, that it's backed up with science, right? So I love it.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on Ready Set Reiki. If you would like your question featured on our show, just reach out to us through social media, email, or at www.readysetreiki.com. Also, check out Feather Sister Wellness, where there's a variety of yoga classes, Reiki classes, and Reiki trainings. So, thank you everyone for joining us. And this has been Ready Set Reiki, and I'm Tracy Searight.